Hello again. Welcome to the return of SwamiLee's Sports Talk. I'm Swami Lee,
I am Mellow Mike.
and we are coming to you, well, not really live, because by the time you see this, we won't be live again, but we are currently live at the La Quinta Inn in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. Yes, the Swami is back in town for a very brief period of time, so what better to do than come here and do SwamiLee's Sports Talk?
I couldn't agree more.
So here we are. Please notice the sideburns. Are we in 1785 or what? Seriously, either that or he's part of the Hellfire Club. One or the other. I haven't decided yet. Anyway, we are here to discuss the only thing to discuss in sports if you're in Philadelphia. And what would that be?
That would be our 2019 6-2 Phillies. But before we get there, there is another issue that we need to discuss.
And that is?
Well, I'm sure even though you've only been away for a year, you remember that Philly is regarded primarily as a football town. So all of our local listeners want to know, since you're down in Jacksonville, is Nick Foles the answer for that franchise?
We can all live in the fantasy world where Nick Foles is Tom Brady. Nick Foles had the season, not even the season, he had a couple games for the ages 2 years ago. And he will always deserve credit for what he accomplished. Nick Foles has also done pretty well in his previous stint in Philadelphia. That being said, tell me one thing Nick Foles has done in a different uniform with multiple opportunities to be in a different uniform.
Well, what quarterback since Stephen McNair has done anything under Jeff Fisher? Answer, nobody.
What about Andy Reid in Kansas City?
You had Alex Smith, and then you had Pat Mahomes. He was a backup.
Well, he didn't actually play with Pat Mahomes because Mahomes was drafted the year that the Eagles won the Super Bowl.
Okay. But you had Alex Smith.
They had Alex Smith. That is correct. The point is, Nick Foles is a good quarterback, and it's as far as it goes. He caught lightning in a bottle. I applaud him for that. I will not take away from that performance in the Super Bowl. It was majestic. It was great. I'm not even an Eagles fan. I was so happy to see him beat Tom Brady. But let me tell you something. The Jaguars, although he's a huge improvement over Blake Bortles, I'm starting to think I would have been a better improvement over Blake Bortles. And I couldn't throw the ball 10 yards. Then again, neither can Blake Bortles. So the answer is no. Look for the Jags to go 7-9 next year. The Swami has spoken.
All right. Well, why don't we turn our attention to our Philadelphia Phillies? Even though you've moved, our viewers can see they are still your Philadelphia Phillies.
We have the MLB package on Comcast. We spend $179 a year so that we can watch the Phillies. I mean, Mom couldn't live without the Phillies, so it's just one of those things. So I have seen pieces of almost every Phillies game this year. I watched that travesty last year. Okay, I don't think Abe Kapler is a good manager. I think that he proved it on opening day last year. But he does have what I call the Francoma factor. Do you know what the Francoma factor is?
Well, one possible definition is that you have a good enough lineup that you just have to sit back, fill out the lineup card, and know that things are going to fall into place unless you do something to muck it up.
That is exactly right. That is exactly right. You could put almost any manager in the Phillies dugout right now, and they would do at least an okay job. It's not like last year where every mistake was magnified. He's not going to have an opportunity. If you think about it, he's not going to. There's no way he could screw things up with the lineup. I mean, he would literally have to try to screw things up. So now it comes down to the starting rotation, which, again, they're not a great starting rotation. You've got an ace. You've got a 2, which is Arrieta, who used to be an ace, but he isn't anymore. You're gambling on Pivetta. Eflin looks like Cy Young right now, but it's only been 2 games. And we'll see what happens with Velasquez, because by the time you watch this, Velasquez will pitch his start on Monday against the Nationals. So we'll see what happens. But the bullpen, which is you know. But how can he really screw it up? That's the question.
Well, how can he screw it up? He can take out starters too early, to wear the bullpen down, which is what he did last year, if you remember, and I'm sure you do.
Oh, I remember. Believe me. He cost them. Believe me, players have WAR, wins above replacement. A good player has 2, 3. Mike Trout had like 10. Well, if managers had WAR and there was a formula for it, Gabe would have been like -7 last year. His managing was brutal. They lost game after game because of his bad decisions. He would take a pitcher out too soon. He'd bring in a relief pitcher for one batter, then the next relief pitcher for one batter. He'd run through his bullpen. Remember, it's not about the innings that they pitch, okay? It's about how many times they get up to warm up in the bullpen. Those are pitches. Every time he warms up in the bullpen. So you warm this guy up 7 days in a row, even if he doesn't pitch, you're wearing out his arm. And Gabe was brutal. He did, in my opinion, he did nothing right last year. Okay? He breathed oxygen, so I guess he did that right. I think that's the only thing Gabe did right last year was breathe oxygen. I could be wrong.
Okay.
He's having trouble breathing oxygen, but that's when they sort it all together.
Well, let's talk about Gabe. How long is it going to be until we see the Gabe of 2018 rear his ugly head and start tinkering?
Well, once again, how could he? In other words, what player on the starting 8, we're only talking about the starting 8 right now, what member of the starting 8 would you take out at any point in time aside from resting him for a day?
Well, the answer is obvious. At this point, and for the foreseeable future, no one. However, just because it's obvious to people who know baseball, that doesn't mean that Gabe is going to realize the wisdom of that.
Well, here's the thing. Let's say we're on June 8th. Real Muto is hitting .241 with 5 home runs, 19 RBIs. Are you really going to play Andrew Knapp over him? In other words, not all the time, but all of a sudden is Andrew Knapp going to start 3 games a week? By the way, the answer is no. We don't have to wait to hear from him. And we can use the same example for Bryce Harper, not necessarily 5 homers, 19 RBIs, but if Bryce Harper is struggling, are you going to see Aaron Altair playing right field 3 days a week? The answer is no. Rhys Hoskins, heaven forbid he starts struggling. Are they going to, I don't even know who the backup first baseman is. Is he going to be playing in first base?
Scott Kingery.
Scott Kingery, there you go, the king. No, he's not. That's my point.
Listen, but no, you're missing the point. Remember the bumper stickers, WWGD. What would Gabe do?
Retire, I hope.
I hope you're right.
You know what's funny? Well, what if, just say the Phillies win the World Series this year. Now let's say they do it in spite of Gabe. Is he going to be a Charlie Manuel hero? Because I know you guys love Charlie Manuel. I know he was Uncle Charlie. He won a World Series. We all love him. The players love him. He was not a good manager. He was a horrendous X's and O's manager. He had a really good lineup. He had solid pitching. And he had an easy route to the postseason, if you think about it.
But you can make the argument that he was the right manager for that team.
Well, that's Terry Francona right there. No, seriously. If you put Terry Francona in a mediocre roster, he's going to win 65 games, even if it's a 75-win team. But if you give him all the tools, he is also a player's manager. Much as I dislike him, he is a player's manager. He will win games by doing nothing. But heaven forbid he have to actually do something. That's a whole nother animal. Now, we have a habit of getting off track a little bit. Just occasionally we do that. Well, just about all the time we do that, let's be honest. But nonetheless, let me tell you a story about my hero, Terry Francona. I ever told you my feelings about Terry Francona? I mean, specific reasons, not just my dislike for him, but specific reasons.
Well, although you've told me, I don't think you've told them.
Does anyone out there remember a utility infielder named Kevin Sefcik?
I do, for what it's worth.
Kevin Sefcik was a very nice little utility player. He had no power, no speed, no glove, but he could play like 7 positions. He could hit 220. I mean, he wasn't horrendous. Well, Francoma loved Sefcik. He actually signed Sefcik, I believe, in Boston when he went to Boston. I believe, if memory serves me. But let me tell you what he did. Now, you got to think back. We're going back into the 1990s here, and the year 2000. This is pre-Jimmy Rollins, pre-Ryan Howard, pre-Chase Utley. I don't even want to tell you some of the names that were playing. But I will tell you one of the shortstop I'm talking about was Alex Arias. Remember Alex Arias?
I do, and I generally lump him in with Desi Relaford, Kim Batiste, Juan Bell. It was kind of a dark time for shortstops in Philadelphia.
There is no doubt in my mind. It was brutal. This is a situation. Let's say that the Phillies were resting their number one hitter, who escaped. I actually looked this up the other day because I was holding this conversation with somebody. That's why it brings this up. Their leadoff hitter was being rested, and they played Kevin Sefcik in his position because Sefcik played everywhere but catcher pretty much. He would bat Sefcik leadoff.
I remember that.
Remember, he had no speed, he had no power, he had no nothing. He would bat leadoff. Okay, no big deal. Let's say he decided to rest Bobby Abreu, and he was going to play Kevin Sefcik in right field. Want to guess where Kevin Sefcik batted?
Well, when Abreu was hitting third, although it would have been Roland back then hitting third. So where was Abreu hitting? Second, fifth?
Honestly, I thought it was third, but you know what? It's humanly possible I'm wrong about that. Bottom line is, you're right. He was batted in Bobby Abreu's spot. Let me say that Alex Arias was the player being rested, the shortstop. Arias batted seventh, by the way. Where do you think Frank Homa batted Kevin Sefcik?
Well, I'll go out on a limb and say it was seventh.
The bottom line, the guy didn't know what the hell he was doing. It's just that simple. Okay, he didn't have to do any work whatsoever. All he did was plug him in whatever spot he was resting the player. Do you really want Kevin Sefcik as your number 3 hitter? I mean, seriously.
Really, if a player like Sefcik is going to be in your starting lineup at all, you want him 7 or 8.
Or 9.
Or 9.
Kevin Sefcik was not good. The point is, Francoma moves to the American League. He takes over an all-star team. He's able to manage the personalities. I applaud you because you manage the personalities. And that's why he won a World Series, and that's why he won a second World Series. How many World Series has he won in Cleveland? I said he won. I didn't say get to. So how many has he won?
Well, we all know the answer to that.
Of course. And you know why has he never won one? Because he actually had to manage. He had Mini Mart as his only batter left. Do you remember that World Series game?
For those of you who don't remember, that was Phillies utility star, Michael Martinez.
Boy, is all I'm going to say to you about Michael Martinez. But seriously, he's not a good manager. This year, last year, he has the dominant team in the division. He'll probably win. But even if he wins this year, he's won with 85 games, 84 games. Indians are not a good team. That whole division is terrible. So anyway.
Well, the Twins are off to a good start.
Yeah, but they won't be able to make the deals to win, okay? Now, if Miguel Sano comes up strong and Byron Buxton becomes the player they thought he was going to be, you know, it could happen. They could be a dominant team. Unlikely, though. Buxton, Sano, 2 huge disappointments. And I mean huge disappointments. But that's a story for another day because we're not really here to talk about the Twins. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a moment for more SwamiLee's Sports Talk.
Stay tuned.
And we're back here at SwamiLee's Sports Talk. No longer sponsored by SwamiLee's Sports Cars and Collectibles because, as we all know, Swami has been gone for 13 months. But he's back in town for a quick 48-hour stint. So what do we have to do?
We have to talk sports.
Exactly right. So, Mike, I'm going to ask you a question right now, and let's see what your thoughts are. Roman Quinn. He's back very shortly. How long till he gets hurt again? Over, under, 14 days.
14 days, I'm going to take the over.
Okay, now, 14 games.
14 games, that's pushing it. I expect that within 15 games, he will be hurt. He will tweak a hamstring or perhaps a calf, and he will be sidelined. And for a player like that who is nothing, and I do mean nothing without his speed, he can't afford to keep getting those injuries. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed seeing Roman He came up like gangbusters last August, September, and and he was a real spark plug. Now, however, the way the lineup is constructed, you don't need him to be that spark plug. So, I think that Roman is going to spend a lot of time down in AA, AAA, AA.
He's out of options. Roman's not going anywhere after he gets on his rehab assignment.
Really? He's out of
options. He's out of options. Altair is out of options. Williams has options. So your options are, when Quinn comes back, you either designate Altair for assignment, and you have 10 days to trade or release him, or you send out Nick Williams. Altair couldn't hit the broadside of a barn to save his life last year.
But he can adequately play all three outfield spots.
Which Williams cannot, and that's a plus for him. But if you send Nick Williams out, you might as well just chop his head off. I think his Phillies career is over if he gets sent out. I really believe that. And that's something that you have to think about also. Plus, he was your number one pinch hitter last year, don't forget.
But unfortunately, we saw that he simply did not have it in him to handle the way Gabe handled him last year. And I'm not saying Gabe handled him correctly, but the fact is, up here and in here, he just couldn't handle it. And I think that's what you're getting at when you say it will break him if he's designated for assignment.
No, he won't be designated. He'd be sent down. He can be optioned.
True enough.
Altair is the one that gets designated. So the problem is this. There's no trade value for Nick Williams. There's no trade value for Aaron Altair. There's no trade value for Roman Quinn. If you say, hey, you know what, trade him. I mean, I'm not trading any of those three for a single A pitcher with a 14% chance of making the major leagues and a 1% chance of making an impact. I'm just not doing it. Why should I help another team for nothing on a low-priced player like a Nick Williams or an Altair? That's where I sit back and wonder. Now, if you can package a deal and maybe Caesar, an outfielder, and a young pitcher, and get a number 3 starter, I'm doing that in 2 seconds. Maybe a second and a half. But I don't see it being done.
Well, I would reserve judgment on that until I know who the young pitcher is and who this number 3 you're talking about is.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, I'm not talking about giving away a key prospect. I'm not talking about that because you're already getting Altair and Cesar. The problem is the market for Cesar is not strong. No team that I'm aware of that's a contender is desperate for a second baseman. They've been trying to trade him for 2 years. They can't find a match. I'm willing to roll the dice with Kingery for this season, even if he doesn't have a good year, because look at that lineup. Look at the lineup. You have one weak spot out of 1 to 8, and that would be Kingery. Assuming he doesn't play well, you're in pretty good shape right there.
Even the Yankees of the 50s managed to win with 1 weak lineup spot. Your friend Phil Rizzuto.
You really just want to get me going, don't you? You really want to get me going. Well, we're going to skip that one because there's another Yankee topic we may cover before the end of this sports talk. This will be like the show that never ends, in case you're wondering. But on a serious note, I don't see them being able to make that deal, although I'd like to see it. As for who the number 3 starter is, it's a good question. Recently, the rumor is that Dallas Keuchel wants a 1-year contract for more than the $17.9 million that he had turned down from the Astros. Do you give up a first-round pick or whatever? I don't even know what the compensation is anymore. Do you give up the compensation for less than a year of Dallas Keuchel after seeing what happened to Jake Arrieta last year, signing late? And he signed in spring training. Keuchel won't be ready to pitch for, if I had to guess, 3 to 4 weeks. You'd be lucky to have him, if you sign him today, you'd be lucky to have him May 1st. I do not think you will, but I think you'd be lucky if you do.
I don't know why anybody would make that move unless they were desperate for starting pitching, which the Phillies are not.
But, who would you rather have? Velasquez or Dallas Keuchel? knowing that Keuchel won't be pitching for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, knowing that Arrieta struggled last year, who would you rather have? That's the key question. Because you're looking at a contender. This team is all in. Win or lose, this is it for the Phillies. They're in it to win it. They're not, if I can cliche a little bit.
Well, it's funny because either this morning or yesterday, Facebook showed me a post from a few years ago, in which maybe it was last season, I don't remember, in which I said, "This is the year Vince Velasquez takes the next step and puts it together." And clearly that was incorrect. I'm not going to make that mistake again. However, as a fifth starter with no pressure on him, maybe, just maybe.
He's a bullpen killer. He throws 96 pitches in 5 innings. He usually gives up 3 to 4 runs in those 5 innings. Now, the good news is this team can actually come back from that 4-2 deficit in the 6th inning, unlike the team from last year, that once he buried them, they couldn't do anything about it.
However, the team still has one defect which has not been corrected.
The manager.
Correct.
That's a concern. The Phillies team, as it's constructed right now, I believe is one piece away from winning the World Series. I do believe that they will win the World Series if they find themselves a solid number 2 starter. I want a 2 because I have a 1. I mean, I'd love to have a second one. Don't get me wrong, but a 2. This way, and they're built to make that trade. I could see them working a deal in July, and I don't think they need to make the deal until July. So I'm anti-Keuchel unless he waits till after the draft and when he comes in and pitches half a season. He spends his 3 weeks to get ready. After the All-Star break, the team's probably going to be up by 2 games, and he joins the rotation. God willing, can give us a good couple of months, because they will not win the World Series with this rotation. I will put that one in stone right there.
Then again, look at who the Phillies won with in 2008.
Again, an extremely weak road to the championship. Think about that for a minute. Okay, you gotta love the La Quinta. Anyway, you had the Brewers, which was a team that got in on the back of CC Sabathia's amazing run. They weren't a good team. They were an okay team. So that was an easy win. And the Dodgers were a good team. The Phillies were a good team. Neither team was great. So they were pretty even. So they had to beat a not-so-good team, but it was okay, and a good team. Not so bad. They got to the World Series, and the weakest of the teams made the World Series to play. I'm not taking anything away from the 08 team. I don't want to get my house egged or anything like that. But believe me, it was not the hardest road to the championship. This year, I don't know if you know how good the Dodgers are. They had 21 home runs in the first 8 games.
I'm aware.
That they're a beast, and the rotation is far better than the Phillies. They've got Kenley Jansen. There's no Kenley Jansen in the Phillies bullpen. So keep that in mind.
I shall.
There you go. Well, we're going to take one more break, and we're going to finish up our SwamiLee's Sports Talk. We'll be back with you in a moment. And we're back, SwamiLee's Sports Talk, for the final segment. Once again, Swami Lee.
I am Mellow Mike.
And we're going to finish our Phillies conversation. As you know, we've gone everywhere, left, right, side to side. But anybody that knows me by now knows that there's never point A to point B. You got to go to C, D, E, F, and G to get to point B. So anyway, we're going to discuss our predictions, not just the record. I want to know how many wins the Phillies are going to get. But I also want to know if they're going to make any moves, major ones, of course, not little ones, and how the season's going to end. Like, in other words, are they going to win the World Series? Are they going to do this? Or what's going to happen? What do you got?
Well, they are not going to the World Series this year.
Ooh. Okay.
They will win the division.
Okay.
They will win their NLDS matchup.
Okay.
And they are going to lose the NLCS in the most dismaying fashion possible because of a bullpen collapse brought about by Gabe's season-long mishandling.
Okay.
If I had to pinpoint it, I'd say that the deciding game of the NLCS will involve Gabe pulling his starter too early and then using his best relievers, whoever may be the hot hand at that time, in what Gabe would call high leverage situations in the sixth inning, seventh inning. So that way, in the ninth inning, you're going to be down to this year's version of David Herndon.
Oy.
And predictably, that will go badly. And so, who's going to become the Joe Carter of the Phillies 2019 season? I don't know. I'm not going to make a prediction. But they are going to win 94 games. It will be enough to win the division. They will win their NLDS matchup. And they're going to go down 4-2 in the NLCS to the team that will have the pleasure of losing to the Houston Astros in the World Series.
Interesting. Well, we're not too far off. I mean, I do agree they'll win the division. I don't think they're going to win 94 games, though. I really don't. I mean, I'd love to go raw right now, but I think between the mediocre number 4 and 5 starters, between the mediocre bullpen, and between a lineup that is destined for slumps, and I think we're seeing it now even, Harper's going to walk a lot. And he's going to wave at a lot of pitches because he's not going to see pitches. Okay. The other day, I made a small football basketball card buy. It was the first one I made in Florida. It wasn't a great buy. Why did I make that buy? I hadn't bought anything since I'd been down in Florida for a year. This was my first opportunity. I wasn't letting it go. So I think we're going to find Harper feeling the same way. He's going to see so few pitches, he's going to start waving at pitches that are not good. And for the record, I almost forgot why I brought up that story. That's why I kind of stumbled there for a second. It's not good getting old. So
I wouldn't know.
Exactly. I hear you. So anyway, I would put the Phillies down for 91 games. They will win the division. I think the Braves are not as good as people think they are. I think the Mets are winning the first week of the season with Mirrors and Jacob deGrom. I don't think their team is that good. I think they'll be lucky to win 84 games. I think the Braves will probably be around 85 games also. I think the Phillies will get into the playoffs. Now here's the only difference between you and me here. I believe if the Phillies can land a stud starting pitcher, and I'm not saying they're going to, but I think if they can land a stud starting pitcher, I think they are a candidate to make it to the World Series. I really do. But they must have, because here's the thing. Imagine putting Nola, Arrieta, and another stud starting pitcher. And this is assuming that Eflin isn't Cy Young, because my God, he's looked good so far. So if you added, and I wish I could think of a player off the top of my head that will be available, that will have that quality. But they're all in. If they can make a deal and it's going to cost them one of their, Moniak or Halsey or something like that, they'll probably make the deal if it helps the team. Maybe it'll be Dallas Keuchel signing in the middle of July. You never know. But I think that's what's going to take. It's going to take to make it happen. If they don't make that move, I guarantee they don't win the World Series with the rotation the way it looks right now. That's how I feel about that. We shall see.
You haven't told our listeners exactly how that season's going to end.
Well, it's tough because with what I see is too many things that will make the deciding factor right there. Okay? In other words, there are different things that will decide how far they go. I really believe that. I believe they're going to make a deal in July. Now, I don't know if that deal is going to be a relief pitcher. I don't know if the deal is going to be a number 5 starter, or if the deal is going to be put their chips in the middle of the table and all of a sudden they land whomever. I mean, if I was the Phillies, I would have signed Cole Hamels this year. Okay, I realize he ain't the Cole Hamels we remember. But who would you rather have, Velasquez or Hamels, as your number 5 starter?
Well, that's a no-brainer.
And that's why I think that was a major mistake. And I believe he was a free agent. I think his contract was up. I'm almost certain of that. And plus, how great would it be if he came back for a year? I mean, that would be outstanding, in my opinion. So anyway, bottom line, I am going to agree with Mike. I am going to say they will be eliminated in the NLCS. I am going to say, and it pains me to do so, I'm going to say in 5 games. We'll see what happens. But that will be, this is our Phillies talk here at SwamiLee's Sports Talk. Maybe a while before you see it again, guys. So I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you sat through these, God knows how long this show was. Hope you survived. For that one person that's still watching, thank you. We do appreciate that. That is, if there is still somebody still watching. If not like it costs us anything to do this, right? Anyway, Mike, any parting words for our one audience member who might be watching?
No, I'm all tapped out. Well, actually, I do have, strike that. I do have some parting words.
Okay.
For several years here in Philadelphia, we've been plagued with the phrase, trust the process. And for those of you who follow the NBA, we're in the final week of the NBA regular season.
They're playing in the NBA stuff?
They are.
So I didn't know that.
And so a lot of people here locally are wondering, what are our 76ers going to do? And I think that our producer will agree with me that it's going to come down to it's going to be close. They'll win their first round matchup. Their second round matchup is going to come down, I should say, to something close. And why are they going to come up on the short end of the stick? 2 words: Brett Brown. He's going to, maybe he'll fail to call a timeout. He'll fail to make the right substitution. But ultimately, it's Brett Brown that's going to cost them their second round series. And ultimately, that's going to cost Brett Brown his job. You heard it here first.
Well, my feeling about basketball is it's boring as sin. Watch the last 2 minutes of the game and skip the first 46, and you see the same game. But I'm going to say one thing. I was very excited today. I heard some news about basketball that I didn't know. I admit I did not know about it. Unfortunately, this news will not be Sixers oriented, because this news could have actually made me interested in the Sixers. But who knew that Manute Bol's son, Bol, yes, that's his name, Bol, is coming to the NBA soon. That's pretty damn exciting if you ask me. So I don't really care about Brett Brown. I don't care about the Sixers, but I would love to watch Bol play the game, because I loved Manute Bol. Manute Bol was probably my favorite basketball player of all time. So rest in peace, Manute. We miss you, and I'm looking forward to watching your son Bol play in the NBA. So on that note, I'm SwamiLee.
I'm Mellow Mike.
Until next time, thanks for tuning in.
Good night, folks.